Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the project build, and today we are patching a few holes. As we can see, we've got these four quite large holes that used to be power points or antenna outlets, distribution boxes, etc. in a media room wall. I'm going to go through the method that I use to get it looking just like this here, where it's nice and patched, doesn't even look like there's a hole there. Obviously I haven't painted the wall yet. You can see a little bit discoloring there, but pretty smooth. So I'm going to do the same thing for the next four, take you along for the ride, show you how to do it. What you'll need is the sanding sheets. I like these ones here, which are a no clog sanding sheet, 180 grit, plus some smooth coat, go over the top, joint knife to smooth that smooth coat. And I got this ceiling plaster here. I'll stick a picture up on the screen just here, but it is the Hyde wall and ceiling plaster patch kit. Essentially just cut off what you need. I'll show you how to use that in a minute. Scissors to do that. Bit of extra sandpaper and a hand sander, and warm water, which you'll need for the plaster kit, which I'll show you in a second. That's it. Let's get to it. First of all, you need to take a little bit of sandpaper. This one here is a little bit of a heavier grit than the 180 grit, just to knock down the edges really quickly, so a bit of a 120 grit here. I want to make sure the wall is as smooth as possible, and make applying the plaster kit just that much easier, that much smoother, and then more prep work now means less finish work later. Just wipe down any excess dust so that the plaster tape can actually stick. And starting with this one right here, one of the smaller holes, we're going to essentially unroll as much of the patch as we need, measure that out. You only need about a sort of a couple of centimeters on either side overlap, just so it can stick onto the wall. Take your scissors, cuts really easy, and it has a plaster compound impregnated into the actual webbing that will activate once it gets wet. So that's where this warm water comes in here. You just need to dunk it in the warm water. It's going to get it nice and pliable. I'm trying to do this one-handed and with the camera. But then we want to place it on the wall. It grips pretty well. And then you just want to smooth out from inside out all the edges to get it as tight as possible, and then pressed firmly against the wall. So you'll see here I'm just going to smooth out all that pre-impregnated plaster in there as well to fill in any gaps. That's just going to help it really stick and become quite a firm and smooth surface in the end. Wipe off any excess, clean the walls up so it doesn't dry there and leave big lumps. But then I'm just going to go ahead here and basically do the exact same thing for the remaining three holes. Cutting to size, wetting, spreading out from inside out to get it nice and taut, smooth the edges, and let it set. This kit only takes about 15 minutes to dry, so the quicker you can sort of do it and then let it just set is advised. You don't want to be playing around with it for too long, so it starts to set up on you. But as long as you get it taut and smoothed out, that's all you need, because we will be putting a finishing compound over the top. So as we can see, try and get a side view here. It is quite straight despite being a flexible material when we put it on. You can get it quite taut against the wall there. So we want to leave that now for about 15 minutes. What you could do here, instead of 3 separate patches, is just do one big long patch if you want it to be really smooth. I was trying to save a bit of material here by doing 3 smaller patches, but also it's easier if you do smaller patches to pull it nice and tight around all the edges of the hole rather than one big long strip, which is a bit harder to get a bit taut. But whichever works for you, if you're going to give this method a go, you can try out both. So it's been 15 minutes now. I'm just giving a little bit of a tap to check that it is hard, and it certainly is. And the top coat here is going to add a little bit of that strength by just holding the webbing together. So I'm going to take a little bit on the edge, try and fill in that middle section first and all those little holes. Now, what I'm doing here is putting pressure on the outside edge of the joint knife and less pressure on the middle. What this is going to do is feather it out, so as you can see around the edge, it's a nice thin layer, and then you get a thicker layer in the middle. That way you get a nice transition, no hard lines, but also you get enough compound built up in the middle to actually cover the surface. So you just apply more pressure to the outside, less to the inside, as you work your way around. Repeat those steps again for the remaining. Here's a nice little close-up, so you know what I mean. You don't have to be too finicky with getting it super smooth, as we'll be sanding all this down with sandpaper anyways, but the smoother you can get it, the less sanding you have to do. Let that dry up now. This compound takes about an hour to dry. There we go. See how it's a lighter colour. It's nice and dry. So I'm going to knock it down now with the sanding block. Using a sanding block means that you don't have to run the risk of burning through in certain areas. You get a nice smooth finish over the entire wall. Just feathering out the edges, leaving a build up in the middle. And some of these areas will need just a thin second coat of that top coat. Which we're going to do now. This time to make sure that there's no noticeable sort of ridges. I'm going to try and blend them basically all in together so that we have one nice cohesive smooth surface towards the end. A bit of a time lapse here on it drying. Alrighty, you're about 99% dry. There's a little patch of a darker bit in there. That's not fully dry. But we're going to go ahead and sand down all the bits that are dry. By running a bare hand over it as well, you get a nice feel of the wall. So you might feel any imperfections that you can't visually see. And that's what I just did there. And I could feel a few little dips where the sandpaper's burnt through a little bit of the plaster, or where it's contracted into those actual patches. And so I'm just going to go now, just because I want it to be 100%. You probably could have painted straight over that second coat after I sanded it, and you would not have noticed a difference, especially since this is going to be behind an entertainment unit. But I decided to go with the third coat to try and make it perfect. Ran into a little bit of an issue there where I had some dried compound on the joint knife, but it's fine. Sanded that down now, ready for paint. Now I've masked up the outlets. I mean, you can barely actually see where even the patches are prior to paint. You can see just a faint outline there of a slight discoloration. That's where the patches are. So it should only take one coat of paint. And there we have it. Masking off, patches done. You cannot even tell where those holes were in the first place. And it was that easy. No blocking we had to cut, no drywall cutting. Smooth, straight, perfect. Now, obviously, if this is going to be a wall that I would need to mount any fixings to or screw into, I would have used a different method for this one. I would have put some blocking in the back and then topped it with some drywall and joint compound around that. But for this purpose, where nothing is ever going to be mounted in the wall down that low, it's always going to be behind a TV unit or some kind of built-in. So there's not going to be anything running into the wall. This method is perfectly fine and suits this application. So we can see some nice close-ups here. Here's before and our after. So if you like these sorts of fixes or projects, please consider subscribing. Check out my channel. Thanks for watching.